Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with my good friend, Michael Liello from Specialized Trust Company. We're going to be talking about self-directed investing. It's something that I do. If you're not doing it, you should be doing it, especially if you're a real estate investor. There's a lot of ways to use your accounts. Honestly, it's great for any entrepreneur because there's some amazing things you can do to build wealth for yourself. We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons, some of a little bit about what it is and how to kind of get the most out of your accounts today. So Specialized Trust Company has been a sponsor of Investor Fuel for, I think, 7.5 years, coming up on 8 years here. Good friends of ours and lots of great information to share. So excited to share that with you today. So Mikey, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me today. I'm actually on the road again. We're going to head speaking at another group of people, just teaching people about self-direction. So, so my name is Michael Liello from Specialized Trust Company. And so what we do is we educate and set people up with their self-directed retirement accounts.
Yeah, that's great. So what is for some folks listening to this, they'll know everything already, but just for those that don't, what is a self-directed account? What is that?
So a self-directed retirement account in a nutshell is essentially taking the handcuffs off of a traditional type retirement account.
Yeah.
So what people mostly are used to when it comes down to their retirement accounts is that they have financial advisors or their 401ks basically set up. And it's invested in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. That's the only thing that they know that they can do. It's the only thing they're allowed to do. But that's not necessarily what the intention of the account actually is. So to go back into like our little Bibles, IRC 4975, right? So that basically is the tax code that tells us what we can and cannot do with the retirement accounts, okay? So basically what it says is that IRA owners can invest in alternative assets or, alternative investments, i.e. real estate, but IRA custodians do not have to offer it as an investment option. So basically what that says is if you call Fidelity and say, I want to purchase 123 Main Street, they're going to say no. It's not exactly like they're lying to you. They're just basically, they don't want you to do that. So then that's basically what
they can't help you with it. Yeah,
exactly right.
And a large reason why they can't help you with it is because they chose not to help you with it because they don't know how to charge you fees for that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's
self-directing
the running rumor.
is just taking control over your own retirement account, and you can invest in almost anything, but certainly real estate. Yeah. You can lend it out. You could, there's a lot of interesting things that you can do. You can buy businesses with it, right? Like even private businesses or invest in companies. And so one of the things, so for entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially on the real estate side, are very familiar with self-directing. I want to get into kind of all the different kinds of accounts and stuff here in a bit. For those of you that are listening that maybe aren't an entrepreneur or are, one of the best ways to fund this is you can roll over your account from if you had a W-2 job before.
Correct.
Typically, your employer is not going to allow you to take money out of their employee or employer funded account and roll it over into a self-directed account. But when you leave, you're going to have to, usually have a period of time where you have to roll it over somewhere. And so that's one other way to fund these accounts, right?
Yeah, so that's one of the most common ways of actually funding. So if you have old IRAs are called transfers. If it's an old 401k from a previous job, that's going to be what's called a rollover. Now, the key thing is with those types of moves is that it is not a taxable event. So that's really important to actually kind of to realize. It's not the you're going to take a tax hit or you're going to get an early withdrawal type of situation. It's basically moving from house to house. Yeah. And this is going to be true with not just your old 401ks, but if you were in the military or you work for the state and you had like a TSP or a 403B, those types of accounts, those ones are basically, they're all in that qualified retirement plan genre. So they can also be moved. So a
Hmm.
lot of you out there who actually were ex-military and you're looking to actually use, you need capital for some investments. I mean, that's a huge thing that not a lot of people know is that those qualified plans are not just strictly 401ks. It's
Right.
kind of all across the board.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's interesting because once you become, once I became an entrepreneur, I got into real estate. I just felt like and by the way, I used to be in finance. My wife was an investment banker on Wall Street. Like we both did a lot of stuff with traditional investments. And I think we were just dismayed with like, man, we could make more money if we take more control over our financial destiny. And then what you learn as an entrepreneur, there are ways to put, especially if you have a solo K, which we get into that today, you have ways to plow way more money and have a company match from your own company into this than what the traditional ways are. So you can really sock away a lot of money that's either tax deferred or what do you say, tax deferred or tax free ultimately.
Yeah, you can call it tax free or the Roth. I mean, we'll go into that in a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah,
but because the Roth is very important, and the
yeah,
IRS really, I mean, when it comes down to what you cannot invest in, it's pretty simple. It's antiques, collectibles, life insurance policies, S corporations, and alcohol. That's the only things that they say that you cannot invest in. So essentially, outside that, the world's your oyster.
yeah. So when I invest in alcohol, I have to expense it. Is that right?
Pretty
It can't be,
much,
it can't
yeah.
be an
Sorry
actual
about that.
investment. Okay. So Mike,
Especially
we're
for
going to
the
talk about
range.
kind of three different ways to use your account today. So why don't
Yeah.
we kind of dive into that?
Yeah, so let's kind of talk a little bit first on like the difference in between the accounts. So kind of going into you said what you cannot invest in.
Hmm.
The other thing to really kind of nail down is to identify who you cannot invest in. That's a big thing when it comes down to self-direction, especially for real estate investors.
Yeah.
Because, all entrepreneurs like to get in, we want to be creative, right? So deal structure is always going to be something that we want to dive into. So when it comes down to who you cannot invest in, just think of it like this. It's just up and down the family tree. So I cannot invest in myself, in my spouse, in my kids, in my grandkids, in my parents, in my grandparents. Okay. Side to side on the family tree is fine though. Brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, completely allowed.
Yeah.
Now, the key word in that we'll get to in just a second is going to be investing in them. Okay. So essentially, there's going to be three different ways that you can invest the account. Number one is going to be outright. So pretty simple. Let's say I have 100 grand in my IRA. I want to purchase 123 Main Street. It's 100,000. There you go. It's purchased in the name of the account. So like, let's say, for example, on the documentation, it's going to say specialized trust company for the benefit of your IRA account. Okay. That's what keeps everything tax free on the returns. Because that's one thing that actually I forgot to always say that in the beginning. The real reason why you're using your account is because it grows tax free. So
Right.
it's the same rules as like the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, but not really everybody knows about it because it's not that great a return usually. But when you're talking about real estate, it's pretty important to actually know that all those returns will come back into the account tax free.
Yep.
So that's an outright purchase. Now, the second one is leveraging. Leveraging is basically you can absolutely borrow in the name of your retirement accounts, but you have to make sure it's a non-recourse loan. So you
Right.
cannot personally back that loan. That's very important, but it's also a huge tool, especially if you're looking to basically, inject your retirement accounts on with steroids. Well, basically, leverage is a great way that you can diversify and utilize that account.
Yeah.
Now,
And a non-recourse loan, mm, just clarify that for people that aren't familiar. So basically, your retirement account, this is one of the benefits of real estate over other traditional investments, especially inside of your retirement account, is your retirement account can borrow money and leverage it. So instead of, if you had $100,000 in your account and you're buying a $100,000 house, it can borrow money. Now, if you have a non-recourse lender that's willing to lend, if you put 20% down, you could take that same $100,000 and buy essentially a $500,000
mhm,
investment, or we're using, this is very academic rounded numbers, but it
yeah,
could also be $500,000 houses as well, right? So just
correct.
kind of share with people what non-recourse means, because they're not,
Yeah,
I mean, any sort of private lender you could find, you could convince it. it wouldn't be hard to convince a private lender that you want recourse, and there's also obviously commercial grade recourse loans as well, non-recourse loans.
Yeah, so non-recourse loans, essentially what it is that you're not actually borrowing the funds, the money, right? So it's actually your account. So
Right.
therefore, you cannot personally have recourse on that loan itself.
You can't
You can
personally
have a
guarantee it. You can't personally guarantee it.
correct. That's exactly right. So now, when it comes down to the availability, let's kind of talking a little bit more. Let's just say Steve down the street has a W-2 job. He's not going anywhere from that, but he loves like he talks to you about your investments all the time. He wishes he can take part in it. Well, he could actually move. Let's say he has old retirement accounts. He can move them into a self-directed account, and then you just need to secure a promissory note. You guys agree on terms, and then he can actually lend directly to you from his retirement account. He'll get a tax-free return, which is going to be a whole lot better than what he's actually probably getting right now.
Right.
And you get to utilize the capital. So it's a win-win on both sides. A lot of the time when it comes down to those loans.
Yeah.
And really when it comes down to for the actual lender, they actually have a tangible asset that they actually are investing in now. They
Mhm.
know exactly what they're doing. They actually have control.
Right.
And a lot of the time, especially, those kind of private money networks grow pretty substantially and kind of stay that way for a while because if they're getting, let's say, a double digit return and just by basically, doing nothing. They're actually really doing nothing. And of course, when that next project comes up, they're going to be probably more than willing to actually kind of jump on that.
Right.
Um, so private money, when it comes to that, of course, yeah, there's different lenders out there, but anybody who has like an old retirement account that can move over to a self-directed account can be a lender.
Yeah, that's great. And if you think about like, and I'm sure you guys are seeing this, like a lot of baby boomers are retiring
Mhm.
from W-2 type jobs. They have a bunch of money in retirement, not only big balances, but they might be looking for other ways to diversify so they could move it into a self-directed account and essentially invest in you. Like they could become your lender.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a good point too because we do have a lot of people that are in that type of situation, and they have their legacy goals. Like they don't want to dry up the well. Being able to have something that can be reliable, and something that's going to be enough for them to basically live on, but
Yeah.
they still want to be able to hand stuff down to their children and things along that lines. There's a lot of opportunity when it comes down to private money.
Yeah. So we talked about kind of outright investing. So people can go buy a house. They could also lend the money. Like you could be, if you have money in your self-direct account, you could lend it to other people and essentially be
Correct.
a lender. You can't lend it to your kids or your grandparents, kind
Yep.
of like what you said, but you could lend it to other people. So there's a lot of folks that I know that have become hard money lenders. I know a lot of hard money lenders in the country. But any individual could be essentially become a lender using their retirement account. Um, and, uh, and then we got into leveraging, so
Hmm.
your account can borrow money. Whether you're investing directly, we also said, hey, you could leverage, you could get a non-recourse loan and buy real estate. You could also use other people's money and leverage it to become a lender, right? I mean, that's how lenders work. Is if you think of like a
Sure.
traditional bank, you're putting money in, which by the way is essentially a loan to the bank, right? You put
Yeah.
money in the bank and you're earning less than 1% generally. And then they relend it out at 6, 7, 8%, and they're making a spread. I mean, that's how lending works. So
Yeah.
you could do the same thing. You could borrow money from people and relend, have a bigger pool to relend. And of course, you mark it up and make a spread on it. So let's talk. Anything else we need to cover on the leveraging side?
On the leveraging side, no, I think we're good on that side. But no, I mean, the opportunity when it comes down to self-direction, especially when it comes to people who think that they couldn't take part, they couldn't play in the pool because they they just were told by whoever, whether it be their parents or grandparents or whatever it might be, is that, this is basically you have your job, you have your 401k, and this you should be happy with that.
Right.
Um, when really you have a lot more control and a lot more opportunity to accomplish what you want and what you need to.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about the self-directed stuff is, do you know like how much money is sitting in like I guess overall retirement accounts? Like let's just say just for nationwide instead of worldwide. But
So nationwide, I believe, oh man, I'm gonna have to fact check this. It's in the trillions. It's
yeah,
trillions of
I
dollars
think
that
several
are
years
in
ago I
retirement
heard like
accounts.
12 trillion or something like that. So
Oh yeah,
it's a
it's
huge
gone up.
number. And the interesting thing for people listening to this, that you have people in your circle, friends and family, of course, it can't be your direct descendants and stuff, but that they don't think they have a lot of money, but they never also include their retirement account. So like, yeah,
Hmm.
I don't really have any, I've got money in my retirement account, but I can't touch that. It's like, well, actually you can. Like if they only knew that they could roll it over and become a lender in to you, they might be interested in that, right?
Well, and that's the thing too. You have a lot of people who are kind of, um, if they're not aware, it's almost like self-directed accounts. It's like their retirement accounts. Excuse me. It's like monopoly money. It's there,
Yeah.
but it's not really worth the same. And it,
Yeah, they
of
don't,
course,
yeah,
it is.
right,
Uh,
right.
if
Well,
you
along
had,
with that, the good thing is if you find people like that that are interested in lending to you, it's generally more patient money because they almost like it's theirs, of course, but they're like not really thinking about it right now because they're not going to retire for say 10, 15 years or more maybe. And so
yeah,
they're not, it's not like they like, yeah, I got a little money burning a hole in my pocket, but I need it back in 4 months. So like, no, I can't touch it. I mean, I say touch it, they can't withdraw it without penalties
mhm.
until they turn of the right age, but they want to keep it invested and busy, right?
Well, and that's the thing when it comes to, overall goals, self-directed accounts, and this is kind of the way that I always start all my conversations is basically, what are you trying to accomplish? Because self-directed accounts, when you really take a look at them, they're financial tools. Traditional type retirement accounts, you have no control over that. It's basically going to be vested however, whoever holds it. That's what they're going to do.
Right.
When it comes to self-directed accounts, it's the best way that I know of to essentially lower your taxes today and then also be able to create tax-free passive income for the future. And that's something we'll go into in a second with the accounts. Um, but also you have so much creativity that you can actually structure these deals with, that it's not going into any gray areas. It's just basically this is what we know we can do. And that's the brings up the third way is going to be partnering. So going back when I was kind of talking about, who you cannot invest in, the key word in that is invest in them. Okay. Now, when it comes to a lot of individuals, they don't just have one singular goal. So let's just say, family of four, and they have two kids that are in private school. They have a high deductible health plan. They're investors. There's a couple of different things that they're actually using real estate as a stepping stone to get to. Right? They need to pay for the education. They need to pay for healthcare. They need to keep the roof over their heads. They want to lower their taxes. So partnering is essentially a way that you can accomplish multiple different goals at the same time for the same investment.
Yep.
So, for example, we can kind of go into like the accounts a little bit. But you have a lot of entrepreneurs that, they set up their solo 401k, which, solo 401k, in my opinion, if you do not have W-2 employees, is going to be one of the best tools that you can have. It also is going to be one of the best tax saving type of accounts as well, because it's going to give you a huge chunk that you can contribute to lower your tax liability every year. So, for example, we have, let's say this couple, they have their 401k that they both participate in and they contribute to. And then they actually set up, because they have legacy goals, because you can absolutely set up Roth IRAs for your kids. If you're an entrepreneur and you're not paying for paying your kids, it probably might be something to look into. And also you can basically set up account. It's called a CISA. So it's a Coverdell Education Savings Account that covers all of qualified education costs up until the children are 29 years old. And then not a lot of people know this, but you could absolutely self-direct a health savings account as well.
Yep.
So with that in mind, you can actually have, so this family of four, so they have their solo case set up, they have their Roth IRAs for their legacy for their kids, and then they have their education accounts that's going to cover all of that, and they have their HSA. All of those accounts can be members of one LLC, and then that LLC can invest. So partnering is huge when it comes down to the figuring out exactly what you're trying to accomplish overall, and then putting those tools in place so that way you don't have to earn more and then get taxed to pay for those certain
Right.
financial goals.
What you just explained there, as you know, Mike, my wife and I, we did this with some of our accounts. I'll come back to that. There's other
Yeah,
ways to partner though that aren't the accounts all becoming owners of an LLC, right? Like you could have two friends that also have an account and they can partner on deals, right? I know it,
absolutely.
you got to track all this stuff so that it's all papered up right. But if you have friends, if you're listening to this and you have friends or, I guess family members that aren't your direct descendants, you can partner together on deals. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so essentially when it comes to the only people that really, when it comes to like the up and down the family tree thing, that's the important thing. But really anybody else outside of that is pretty much the world's your oyster. I mean, we have clients who, they're two brothers actually come to mind that basically, every other deal, because they actually are kind of planning it out. We've worked with them and we do this for a lot of individuals, is that, making sure that they're aware of everything that, is possible with the accounts, because there's not a whole lot of education out there. So we really focus on education. Um, but one of their things that they're having, it's a champagne problem, but when they are basically making too much. And so they're getting
Is that what you
killed
call
on
a champagne
taxes.
problem?
Yeah, I call that
You
champagne
make too
problem.
much money? I'd never heard of that before, but yeah.
Well, I mean, when you have to give it away, when you have to actually write that check to the government, that's when it becomes a problem.
Okay.
Um, but there's a solution to that, right? So not only do you have, and we can talk a little bit about the solo K right now, you have tax deferred contributions are basically it's your way to lower your tax liability dollar for dollar, right? So the solo K, for example, allows you to put in 46,500 this year for 2025. It'll probably go up next year. So, but that's a tax deferred contribution. So it's a way that you can keep as much money in your pocket as possible. On the other side, too, you have employee contribution, which can be Roth or tax free. And that's 23.5 under the age of 50. It's going to be 31 over the age of 50,000. That could go directly to your Roth account. For those out there who think they make too much to actually contribute to a Roth, or they're not eligible, or you're really just trying to earn that tax free forever money, Solo K is definitely going to be your best friend.
Yeah, so that's pushing $80,000 a year,
Mhm,
and if your spouse is involved in the business, for them too, that you
correct.
can put away some elements tax free, some tax deferred, with
Yeah.
your contribution and the company match.
And so,
So
and I'll
it's
go into a little
just
bit
say it
more
another way, an
detail.
entrepreneur couple with a business that's doing well can put $160,000 a year into these accounts, which is amazing.
Correct. And that's the thing, is that when you actually are looking at as a whole, again, everything has a purpose, right? IRAs have their own purpose, 401ks do. Going back to like that brother example, just to kind of finish that one, is that, with their problem is the fact of essentially they figured out that they are going to be basically doing their deals in their separate businesses, just like normal. But the ones when they do their, they go to the CPA and like, okay, so how much do I actually want to actually have coming into the household? Because they're never going to, no entrepreneur is going to give up a deal. That's not happening.
Yeah.
Um, but they still want to actually take down those deals. So what they do is they actually can partner their 401ks together on deals, and then that will earn tax free and it doesn't add to their tax liability.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they're actually, incidentally securing their future while not giving up deals and lowering their taxes for today.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
then yeah,
If you're listening to this and you think this sounds really cool, but you missed some stuff, and you're like, there's a couple missing pieces here. Well, at the end, we'll ask Michael how you can reach out to these guys and learn more, because this is the key, is like having a resource that can kind of hold your hand through it and walk you through the setup, really. And then once you kind of understand the rules, it's really not that hard. And so, one of the things that Michael talked about a few minutes ago is something that we did in my family, because we have a bunch of accounts. We have IRAs and 401ks, self-directed. We have a health savings account, and it just was like kind of complicated to have. They're really treated as separate entities,
hmm
and so instead of having all these separate entities that we're managing um, investments in, we basically started an LLC that my wife and I are managers of, but we don't own. Our retirement accounts own them. And so I guess the members of the LLC are 5 of our retirement accounts. So
Hmm.
we were able to kind of take, some of them had the health savings account naturally has a smaller balance than anything else because your contribution limits are smaller than your other accounts, at least for us. And so we were able to kind of take 5 accounts and say, hey, they're the owners of this LLC. They fund it with the money that we have in these accounts. And that gives us checkbook access. So now we invested in a large multifamily deal, and I think we sent a wire, but sent a wire, have a checkbook or whatever.
Hmm.
We could lend to people and not necessarily have to go through the custodian every time because we kind of have checkbook control. And so that gave us the ability to do all sorts of stuff
Hmm.
and combine the balances of an account to have a bigger lump sum, if you will, to do things
Yeah,
with.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, and that's the thing that a lot of, and because it all comes back to being just not very well known subject, right?
Right.
Being able to kind of, when you first get confronted with self direction, it kind of seems, like you said, it seems overwhelming. And it's kind of like, well, and a lot of times it's actually almost, it's almost like frustrating, and it kind of creates a little bit of anger because, a lot of people say, well, that can't be a thing. I would have known about that. Um, or it's restricted to just like the linear outright type of investments,
Hmm.
right? But there's so much more creativity, going back to just making sure that every single deal has an intention. And so when you're combining basically the accounts with that as tools to help secure that your financial goals, it changes the game because you really are. It's the hack to avoid tax.
And the cool thing, and the reason that people say that if this was a thing, I would have known about it. It's like, well, who would have told you unless it's like
Yeah,
us or you're obviously at an event speaking now. I mean, this is not there's a lot of money in self-directed accounts, but it's a small amount of the overall retirement accounts, and that's because the big like investment banks of the world want you to buy their products because that's what they charge fees on. And so
oh yeah,
obviously this tends to be probably the most well known in real estate circles just because real estate tends to be one of the bigger investment vehicles, even though it doesn't have to be, but that just tends to be what a lot of people use them for, at least in my circles.
oh yeah.
For sure. So yeah.
That's actually I'm glad you asked that or said that because I did actually have somebody like bring that up. It's like, so, uh, is it just real estate that I can invest in? Like, no, absolutely not. You can do a whole lot when it comes to it. Like you said, you can purchase businesses, you can private lend,
Yep.
you can buy raw land, you can even develop, on those land if it's owned by your retirement account. Again, make sure to keep it in lines.
Right.
Don't build your own personal house on that land.
Yeah, you can't
uh,
personally benefit. That's one thing that we
yes.
haven't really talked about much. Yes, about much yet is you can't personally benefit. So you can't like flip a house and keep a fee for yourself personally in your
Correct.
retirement accounts. Like everything has to go into your retirement accounts, and you can't commingle those things at all. And so we won't get into those details on this show, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's why it's important to work with somebody that kind of knows the rules so they can keep you safe.
Yeah, exactly. And just the real quick on that one too. So also don't do the work yourself if you're going to be investing into like a fix and flip. Do not do the work yourself. Have somebody else do it because they do not want you to actually. So it's called self dealing is essentially what it's called.
Yeah.
But you don't want to go down that road. There's a lot of different creative ways that the IRS is okay with. In order to accomplish the same goals. So that's
Right.
kind of what we focus on as a company, and basically, myself and Amanda Holbrook as individuals, to make sure that wherever we're actually setting up is going to be the right thing for what you're trying to get done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like going into like the solo K, for example, the solo K, so you cannot borrow from any IRA account, right? But the solo K is the exception when it comes down to if you need some private capital, so just like household income, or you just need it for, investment purpose or anything like that. The solo K is also your answer. So let's say
Huh.
that you had 100,000 in old retirement accounts and you move those and you roll those over into a self-directed solo 401k. Well, the solo 401k is basically kind of set up like this. So you basically have your company as a sponsor for your 401k. And then you have the two participants, which is you and your spouse. You guys both will have a traditional and a Roth account. So it's basically your two employees working for the same company participating in the same 401k plan. So it's
Mhm.
just like if you worked at Microsoft or something like that. Um, So you have your higher contribution for the tax deferred side, which is great for tax savings. You have your bigger contribution for Roth as well. But not only can you invest out of that 401k into anything basically that you would like to within those small restrictions, but you can also borrow up to $50,000 as an unrestricted cash loan. So essentially, in that situation, you actually can borrow 50,000 or up to 50%, whichever comes first. So if you have 80,000, you can only borrow 40. But in that situation, it's not going to follow the same rules, right? So you can turn around and just put it straight back into the company if you like to. It's unrestricted.
Yeah.
And then essentially, you're just going to pay yourself back with interest. So instead of essentially going to the bank and then just paying that interest, now you pay yourself back that interest. And then it's a 5-year loan. So it's $50K in just cash that you can actually access. So yes, usually you cannot borrow from your retirement account except for the 401k.
Yep. Well, we could talk about this all day. Guys, I use Specialized Trust Company. The owners are good friends of mine too. We've become friends over the years. Michael's an amazing resource. If you have questions or you want to learn about this, where can they go, Michael, to come learn more about you guys?
Yeah, so you can actually go to specializedtrustcompany.com. I can put up my contact page real quick if you'd like. Would that be helpful?
Can you just share? Is it a link or?
Yeah, so basically I have a QR code up here. If you'd like, I can share that.
You can try to share it. I don't know if that'll work or not. We're just winging it on this show apparently, but see if you can share that. And if you guys talk to Michael directly, I'd recommend talking to Michael directly because you just got to know him here if you don't know him already. But are you able to share it?
Let's see here.
But if you do, definitely let him know where you came from. He'll take good care of you. Let him know you came from the Investor Fuel show. If for Investor Fuel Mastermind members, if you're listening to this, you should already have Michael's contact info.
It doesn't look like it's going to go. So you can actually email me at mliello@irastc.com. And then I'll actually get you, I'll make sure that I send over the link for my calendar to Mike. So that way, if anybody is interested, you guys can just get access to it there.
Yeah, share that with me now, Michael, when we get off here, and we'll get it in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, you should see in the show notes, we'll add some of the links for how to get a hold of Michael directly. So
yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, guys, thanks for joining us today. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur, somebody said something a long time ago, but not as long as I've been an entrepreneur, that really resonated with me. And that is that we spend so much time trying to grow the business, and it's usually the top line. And, the quote was, the comment was something around, if you spent even a fraction of the amount of time saving more of what you've already made on the bottom line, you would be way better off than, probably is putting as much effort into growing the top line. You want to grow it all, but the point is like, we work hard to make money as a business, and it's not as easy as what anybody thinks. We all know that. And you should do everything you can to kind of build up wealth and try to protect yourself from as many taxes as we do pay. If you're an entrepreneur, you know that you hate it when somebody says anything about paying your fair share, because we pay a lot of taxes, or we certainly have we're in the sights, right, for paying a lot of taxes. And so you should do everything you can, including a lot of stuff that we talked about today, about how to kind of minimize that tax bill, because you're probably paying your fair share no matter what anybody else says, and then some. So appreciate you guys. I hope you got some good value from today's show. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.